Hi, my name is Stan.
My name is Connie.
My name is Judy.
My name is Aileen, and I'm a caregiver to my mother.
And I care for my mother, Octavia.
And I'm a caregiver for my mother.
And I'm a caregiver to my husband, Art.
I'm a caregiver for my wife, Ann, who's 72 years old.
Basically, I've done everything for providing for both of them.
I take care of my mother on the weekends. I take her grocery shopping.
Not only household chores,
I provide her medical care, coordination, driving, errands.
choosing meals, making meals, cleaning up.
I find that I take care of anything that he can't take care of.
Sometimes I find balancing time a real challenge.
The difficult part for me is taking me into consideration.
Balancing her needs with the needs of my family, the needs of my marriage, and my own needs.
Staying calm, nice, and positive.
The real challenge is, of course, the distance and the moment you get that last phone call.
What I love most about taking care of her is knowing that we're providing a secure and comfortable home for her.
It's the time we spend together.
Is the adventure of finding out new things all the time to trying to help him stay out of pain.
My name is Ed. I'm a spouse and I'm a caregiver.
My name is Colette. I'm a daughter and a caregiver.
I'm a caregiver, and I'm a daughter.
And I'm a wife and a caregiver.
I'm a daughter and a caregiver.
I'm a son, a nephew, and a caregiver.
Hi, my name is Deborah Day, and I help manage United Way Caregivers Coalition. While caring for a loved one has its special rewards, it's a very challenging job. It can be stressful, overwhelming, and sometimes lonely. Each caregiving situation is unique, but all caregivers share the need for information and support. And that's where the Caregivers Coalition comes in. We help caregivers receive the support they need to take care of their loved ones and to take care of themselves. Caregivers who lead healthy, productive lives will be better caregivers. The most important thing to remember is that as a caregiver, you're not alone.
Kimberly Rescorla is a Senior Trust Officer with U.S. Trust, Bank of America, Private Wealth Management, in the Greater Tri-State region, where she's responsible for overseeing account administration, delivering wealth structuring, trust, estate, and philanthropic planning, as well as custom credit and cash management solution to clients. Prior to joining U.S. Trust, Kimberly was an attorney in private practice specializing in estate and special needs planning, estate administration, and fiduciary litigation. So she knows what she's talking about. Kimberly obtained a bachelor's degree in English and Communication from Marist in 2000, graduating cum laude. Kimberly graduated from Seton Hall University School of Law in 2003 and was admitted to the bar in the state of New York and the state of New Jersey in January 2004. Kimberly then was bored and decided to attend Georgetown University School of Law and graduated with an LLM in taxation. You may have to explain what that is. With honors and distinction in 2005, I welcome you, Kimberly. You are in very good hands.
Good evening. In addition to practicing law in this area, I was also a caregiver for both of my grandparents. So some of what I'm going to talk to you guys about tonight is from experience advising clients, and some of it is from personal experience working with both of my grandparents. My grandfather had cancer, but he was mentally sound. On the other hand, my grandmother had dementia, but she was physically sound. So two very different experiences as a caregiver. Ideally, right, if you were going to become a caregiver in the ideal situation, there would be multiple family meetings. You'd all sit down and discuss it. There'd be a plan in place. Your loved one would come to you when they were ready to give up those car keys. They would come to you and say, I don't feel like dealing with my finances anymore, right? And you'd all sit down with a family lawyer. Everybody would know where all the documents were, right? Everyone would know who they work with, who their doctors are, who their person at the bank is. But for most of us, you become a caregiver like I did in a time of crisis, when someone gets sick. And not when they're first diagnosed, but often when it might have advanced, like dementia. Or when someone gets hurt and someone falls. And all of a sudden, there's a mad rush. Where are the documents? Who's in charge of what? Who's making what decisions? Do they have to go to a rehab facility? How long are they in the hospital for? And we all know what that feels like, right? When you're going day to day, there's no plan in place. And if there was one, it sort of went out the window a little bit along the way. And we're managing day to day. What's the current crisis, right? Who's the current doctor that they have to go to? Who's the next person I have to talk to? And it feels like you're running. It feels like you're breathless. And in that moment, a lot of us are going to feel frustrated. We're going to have anxiety. We're going to have depression. We're going to have fear. Now imagine in the midst of all of that, your child came to you and said, "You're not doing a good enough job. I'm going to take over for you." Okay? That's sort of what your loved ones feel like. They're already facing perhaps some health issues that have them feeling diminished and vulnerable. If anybody's ever broken an arm, broken a leg, you know what it feels like not to be able to do everything you used to do, and what it feels like to have to ask somebody to do things for you. And it's so important that we remember, right? Because we're in panic mode. We're in management mode. And so every ounce of resistance from our loved one seems to make our work a little bit harder, a little bit more difficult. And we just want to help, whatever we can do. And we can't understand why they won't help us help them. So when I talk today about financial caregiving, it's keeping in mind what our loved ones are going through. It's keeping in mind that financial independence is important. It was the hallmark for all of us. When did you know you were a grown-up? When you earned your own money, when you paid your own bill, when you had your own apartment, your own house. Right? So it's about managing what our loved one is going through to make our lives that much easier, and our relationship and our experience with them that much easier. Oftentimes, this is what we all feel like. Right? Everybody needs something from us. Right? Everything needs to get done. We're so busy we don't know where to start making a to-do list. And that's what our loved ones are feeling as well. I don't like to be wrong. Most people don't. I've never heard anybody say, "I'm so glad I messed that up." Okay? But if you call me out on it in front of a large group of people, I have never been more right in my life, right? And I'm going to dig in. And it's about pride. And it's about dignity. Okay? If you're dealing with somebody who has dementia, it's also about perception. Okay? They don't remember that they left the stove on. If you confront them and say, "Why wasn't this bill paid?" So they forgot one bill. They don't remember that it's 6 months of bills that weren't paid. It's a cell phone that was turned off. Maybe the electricity that was forgotten. Right? You say to them, "You don't have anything in the refrigerator." "I forgot to go to the grocery store." Okay, but it's empty and what's in there is past its date. Right? But to them, their reality is fixed. Yours is flawed. I don't know if any of you remember this. This was a big thing on the internet. Everybody saw this picture, and some people truly believed it was blue and black, and some people believed with all their heart and soul that it was white and gold. And it was an ongoing debate, right? People got pretty intense about this dress. Why? Because I can see it with my own eyes. And because of that, I know in my heart and soul that is blue and black. And if you're telling me it's white and gold, you're playing a trick on me. And the other way around, I see it quite clearly. It is white and gold. And if you tell me, If you tell me that it's blue and black, you're trying to trick me. Think about that in the context of our loved ones. They know reality. They're confident in it. They can see it. They can feel it. They can remember it, as flawed as their memory might be. When you're talking about managing somebody else's finances and talking about managing somebody else's money, you need their assistance. You need their buy-in. Even just to know where things are. What bank do you use? Who has your power of attorney? Where did you put it? Right? I don't know if you've had the experience of wandering around through somebody's house and finding stacks of paper. Right? Have we ever had to clean up really quickly because somebody's coming over to the house?
I forget where I put it.
Yeah, you forget where you put it. Right? You take all of your papers, you shove them in a bag somewhere where nobody will find them,
Right.
and you hope that that place wasn't the oven. Right? So you can imagine for somebody with dementia or Alzheimer's or memory issues, you clean up very quickly and you put it all in a very safe space. Where that space might be, an hour or two later, nobody knows. Okay? So how do we change the conversation? How do we get them to buy in? They said I was a caregiver for both of my grandparents. My grandmother was what we affectionately termed difficult. The kind of difficult that sent caregivers home crying on more than one occasion. Okay? So how do we change the conversation? And this was her favorite statement. Why does it always have to be your way? Why can't it be my way? Right? Because she felt like we had invaded her home and we were now telling her how to run her household, how to run her finances, and what to do. For my mother, this was like a red flag in front of a bull, because all she wanted to do was take care of them the way that they had taken care of her all of her life. So it can be your way, but your way ends up with you putting salt in your tea instead of sugar. Eventually, my mother learned, let her have it her way, and when she puts salt in her tea and makes that funny face, you say to her, oh, I'm sorry you don't like it, can I make you another cup? Why? There's no fight over the salt shaker. My grandmother didn't feel like somebody was telling her what to do, and my mother just got her another cup of tea. Because you can't fight their reality. You could argue all day long, the dress is black and blue, the dress is white and gold. You will never change it. So how do we change the conversation? Instead of saying to them, this bill is overdue, preserve their pride. The company made a mistake, why don't I call them to fix it? I'm on your side. I'm as angry at PSE&G as you are. I can't believe they didn't credit your payment. I'm going to give them a call. And then what do? You take the bill, you go into another room, you pay it, call with a credit card, and you save the bill, put it in your purse. Because that has the information on it that you're going to need to make that bill disappear in the future. Where did you put all of the bills? Well, wait a minute, I'm the adult here, right? I raised a family. I ran a business. Some of them are veterans. I went to war. I don't need you to tell me how to pay my bills. Well, how about instead, I'm reviewing my bills. Can I take a look at yours and see if you're getting a better deal? Right? You're the authority. You're the grown-up. You help me. And really, who's going to say, absolutely not? Okay? I need your password for this. That's flawed for so many different reasons. First of all, they probably don't remember what it is. And they're not going to tell you they don't remember. So instead, they're going to say you can't have it. Okay? But also because, well, now it's an invasion. It's an invasion of privacy. You're logging into my things. Imagine if somebody you love very dearly, a spouse or a child, had the ability to crawl through all of your financial decisions for the last several years and question them. Probably wouldn't be a really great feeling. So how about I got you a notebook so we can write down your password. I used my grandparents against each other. Grandpa, you know Grandma's going to forget. How about we write it down, because she's a little off, right? And it worked because above everything, they wanted to take care of each other. I need you to sign this so I can do things for you because you can't do them anymore. That's what happens with that power of attorney, right? You need a power of attorney, and we'll talk about that in a minute, but you need a power of attorney to have the ability to manage finances for them, to have the legal authority to access their accounts. What do you need this for? What are you going to use it for? What do you mean you can sign my taxes? What do you mean that you can transfer assets? Okay. So instead, I've been putting together my documents for my family to make sure the family's taken care of. Would you go over ours together and make sure that we can sign them all together, make sure our plans work? All right, because who do they love more than the grandkids? So if you sit down with them and say, hey, look, we want to make sure that what I'm putting together for my kids mixes with what you've put together for the grandkids, and that everything works in harmony. Then you've done a couple of things. You've gotten them to go find the documents, or to give you permission to look for them. Or even better, if you can't find them, that's fine. I'm sure your attorney has copies of them. And now you have the name of their attorney to talk to. Okay? And that way, you're getting them to provide the information. They're actively involved in the process. I will say this. We're all moving at light speed, right? We're thinking, I've got X, Y, Z to do in the next hour. I've got to get them to the doctor. I've got to get their medications. It's all well and good to say these are great ways to think through how to approach them. So what do you do if you mess it up? Well, dementia and Alzheimer's comes with one blessing. They forget. Leave the room, wait a couple hours, come on back in. Okay? And they will no longer be upset or frustrated or angry. Another thing is when you're dealing with people who have memory issues, word retrieval is often difficult for them, and sometimes word recognition can be difficult for them. They might not understand what you're saying, but they read your body language tremendously well. So if you are frustrated or angry or tense, they read that. So when you approach them, if you approach them with a smile on your face, with your arms open, with a soft voice, they react to that as positively as they would react negatively to other things. Powers of attorney. Power of attorney is for financial matters. So you'll hear about healthcare directives and healthcare representatives for medical decisions. Powers of attorney are strictly for financial decisions, and they die with whoever signed them and granted them. So after that person has passed away, they are no good anymore. The power of attorney. After somebody passes away, no good anymore. Okay? There are two kinds. There's what we call durable general powers of attorney. They're currently in effect. They survive if the person becomes incapacitated. Right? So the second they sign them, you can sign documents for them. You can manage their bank accounts. Springing are powers of attorney that say only in the event of my incapacity will this become effective. The problem with a springing power of attorney, who's going to make the decision that they're incapacitated? Now, if it says in there that you need to get their doctor to do it, you've got a couple of problems. You've got to convince the doctor to sign something saying this person is incapacitated, and you've got to convince them to go to the doctor. Okay? Neither one, which might be easy. However, if you have a loved one who is extremely resistant to signing documents and giving up control, a springing power of attorney is still better than no documents at all, and it might be a way to get them to sign something. Okay? So, powers of attorney typically include the authority to pay bills, to make investment decisions, right? Real estate transactions, other legal matters. If you're filing a Medicaid application and you have to go to all the banks to get the bank statements, and you go to request them and you're not on the account, they're going to ask you for one. When you file the Medicaid application and you go in to sign it for your loved one, they're going to want your power of attorney as well. Okay? It does not cover medical decisions. So anything that has to do with their health care. You can pay the nursing home, doesn't mean you're the person who gets to choose the nursing home. Okay? It's a good thing to make sure whoever has the power of attorney should also either have the healthcare proxy and healthcare representative or be very good friends. Okay. People sometimes split them. They have 2 children. They don't want anybody to be left out. So they give the power of attorney for financial to the child that lives close by and the healthcare representative to the child that lives out in California. When do you need that medical power of attorney? Usually when there's a crisis, and the kid in California is the one who has been delegated making those decisions. So take a look at those documents. Also, it's quite possible people haven't updated these in a long time. HIPAA is a wonderful thing, right? And there are riders that go on powers of attorney that give you access to medical information that you'll need to pay their bills. Technology, right? Blessing and a curse, right? But for a caregiver, you can really leverage it to make your life easier and organize all of these documents that are flying all over the place. One of the things that I mentioned, you say to them, let me handle this PC&G bill. You stash it somewhere. Why? It's got the account number on it. It's got their name on it. You can now dial into an automated system and find out if there's an outstanding bill. And if they are not technologically savvy, you can also log into PC&G and set up a username, password of your own to be able to access that account, set up an automatic payment, and hey, e-statements. So now no bill comes to the house, it simply gets paid, and they are none the wiser. So you avoid the confrontation altogether. And chances are you get so much junk mail, they won't even notice a bill is missing. Okay? So, some different ways to leverage technology. One email address strictly for caregiving. We all get spammed all day long, whether it's PetSmart, Barnes & Noble, whoever's having a sale today, Kohl's 3 times a day, right? And the second you make a purchase, you get an email. You get an email. So set up one free email account just for caregiving. If your personal email account is a Gmail account for Google, use a Yahoo account. Okay? A lot of times there are phone apps. Put the app on your phone. It'll come up with a little notification anytime there's an email in there. And use that email only for the automatic payments that you set up. If you're asked for an email address from somebody, let's say at the nursing home, right? Because you can get the nursing home notifications, whether it's a monthly newsletter, upcoming events, all goes to that one email address. All of your e-statements, you're going to get an email to that one email address that says you have a statement. Payment notifications, receipts, medical bill payments, all in one place, easily accessible at any time from your phone. Okay. Consolidate to one credit card. Okay. Often easier said than done, but if you have one credit card for caregiving that gives you one bill that goes to your one email address, and it is set up for automatic payments, it also stops you from how many times do you buy something or get something for your loved one and then you're looking through receipts to reimburse yourself. One credit card, all your caregiving expenses, one payment to one email address. Okay. Consolidate to one financial services provider. Okay. After 2007, 2008, people became very concerned about the safety of their money. And a good deal of elderly individuals decided to split up their money into bank accounts at 1,000 different banks trying to get FDIC coverage. Right? So now you've got, right, you're kind of like on an Easter egg hunt going looking for the money. Consolidate to a single financial services provider. I will admit I'm biased. I work for U.S. Trust. We're the private bank for Bank of America. Also in our little family is Merrill Lynch. So I'm biased because our clients can do everything under one roof, investments, banking, and everything else. But there are a lot of other banks that offer similar services. So you can move their investments without liquidating them and get everything under one house. It does a couple of different things for you. First of all, you have one-stop shopping for anything you need or any questions you have. There's one bank, one set of bank rules, right? Everyone wants something different in terms of the forms that you file or something else. One bank, one set of rules, one set of statements. And often, once you consolidate all of those, one person to deal with. A lot of clients go to the branches still, okay? And they may have their person there. Right? Maybe once a week they go in, they see their person, they get their money out. Go in and meet their person with them. Bring them the power of attorney, introduce yourself, both for your sanity and to have a contact person, but for fraud prevention. Okay? Unfortunately, we do worry about elder abuse. We do worry about scams. We do worry about somebody taking advantage of our loved ones in a financial sense. And so if that individual knows you, knows you're the person, then somebody else comes in with your loved one to take out money, they know something's wrong. Okay? So take the time to meet their people. Old documents. Right? We find treasure troves of old documents. I found documents, my grandfather's from 1972. If you find old documents that you absolutely think that you need to hold on to, you can have them scanned in, and you can upload them to a Dropbox. They're all available to you. You log in with that one email address that you use for caregiving, and all of the documents are there. Chances are you'll never need them, and they can sit there safely and quietly and not all over your house. But if you're concerned about throwing things out, you can always have them scanned in. I know everybody thinks, oh, I've got stacks of them, right? But there are actually services that will scan things in for you. You can send them away, and they do use huge industrial scanners, scan it all in, send it back to you on a USB flash drive. Okay? That one email address you have, share the password. What happens if you're unavailable? Well, you have everything consolidated into one email address that no one can get to. Okay? So know who your backup is, whether it's a sibling, another loved one, a child. Right? My mother was an only child, so she was the primary caregiver for my grandparents. I was her backup in terms of financial, and my brother was her backup in terms of anything medical or personal. That way we always knew, my mom got the flu. You can't go through the nursing home when you've got the flu. Right? So my brother and I took over for a week. If they have a computer, and the nursing home that my grandmother was in had a library with 4 computers that they could use. And we asked them, do you have parental controls? The emails that they can get, the scams that they get, the one that was on the news about somebody calling saying they're from the IRS, and if you don't pay us now. All right, yeah, for somebody who has memory issues, who's a little bit uncertain if they did or didn't actually pay their taxes, that could be very frightening, and they might just give them a credit card number or information. Well, the same thing if they have a computer. Check for parental controls on your television set. They're home all day long. They are bored. There's a home shopping network. Okay? So check the parental controls on the television set and see if you can block some of those channels out. They're going to wonder where their credit cards went. Give them prepaid Visa cards. Looks just like a credit card. It's got a limit, and if they do decide to play on QVC or the Home Shopping Network, and they sign up for a 2 years subscription, to who knows what, the Nail Polish of the Month Club or whatever else, all they can do is max out a prepaid card. Right? And it also minimizes fraud issues. Somebody calls them on the phone, they don't have cash, but it's very easy to make checkbooks disappear. Most they're going to do is give them that credit card number and maybe get $500. Okay? Apps for the phone. There are all kinds of parental controls on the phone. Right? So we use GPS trackers if you have people that wander. Right? We need to know where they are. Use their phone as a GPS tracker. You find them anywhere. Okay? Net Nanny, Phone Sheriff. There's all ways to look at what they're playing around with, right? Because your smartphone is basically just a mini computer. You can get just as many spam emails, text messages, right, phone calls, as you could for your home phone or your standard computer. GPSs, using them on the phone. Phones like Jitterbug are built for people who have challenges. Okay? Jitterbug is a flip phone. If you have a problem and you call in, you're actually going to get a human being, not a phone tree. Okay? It's built with GPS in it. It has just, I said, the basic phone pad, so no texting, no smartphone apps, no playing around on the internet. It's just a cell phone. In case of emergency, in the telephone contacts, right, make sure that you label yourself, right? Because if they get lost and they've got the cell phone, they're going to give it to somebody else. What are they going to look for? Home. Right? Label yourself. Primary contact. In case of emergency, call this person. Make sure that that phone has your cell phone, your home phone, your work phone. You can even go onto Google and set up a Google Voice account, one number that can ring all of your numbers in case of emergency. And if you're using Google for your email address for caregiving, it all links together. What do you do with the paper you can't get rid of? What do you do with the paper that you can't get rid of, and how long do you keep it for? Okay. Yep. And honestly, some paperwork you want to keep 5-7 years. Things like tax returns. Okay. Some things, like I said, the PSE&G bill from 2 years ago, we can let that go. Okay. Worst comes to worst, if you need it, they'll get it to you. If you have an online account, chances are you can download a PDF of it. Right? But for stuff that you absolutely can't get rid of, and one of the things that's in the materials on page 13, just a list of general guidelines for how long to keep things. Right? Like I said, and keeping it doesn't necessarily mean keeping the original.
I didn't get that.
Keeping it can mean scanning it in. There you go. Right? Keeping it can mean scanning it in. You don't necessarily need the original. Things that you always keep the original of. Estate planning documents. If you find an original will, do not unstaple it and photocopy it. Okay? If you unstaple it, you're going to have problems because people could claim that you slipped a page in there.
Really?
So wills have got to stay stapled together and intact. And hopefully your loved one hasn't written on it. Very smart gentleman, very well educated, decided that he was going to revise his own will, crossed things out, drew all over it, right? Kind of a mess when you go to court with it and you're like, I think this is what he wanted. The other thing is, if you can't find a will, they presume that there is none, and that if there was one, it was destroyed. So wills you definitely want to keep safe and not unstaple. Powers of attorney, you can photocopy those all over. You could wallpaper places with those. Right? Unstaple them, photocopy them, and I suggest that you do. Most of our recommendation is that if you're signing a power of attorney, you sign 3 copies. A will, you cannot have multiple originals. A power of attorney, you can. You sign 3 copies. The attorney keeps 1. Okay? You have 1. And then you have the extra because chances are financial institutions may ask for an original copy. Tell them you don't have one, you only have the photocopy, and sometimes they will accept it, but sometimes they will not accept anything but the original. That leaves you with 1 to photocopy to your heart's content and still 1 in the attorney's file. Originals, you want them in a fireproof safe or in a safe deposit box. If they're in a safe deposit box, make sure you are not the only person who can sign in to get access to it. If you have a safe, make sure you share the combination. Nobody is going to want to sit there and try and play with that to figure out whose birthday you used. Shredding. We worry about fraud. We worry about identity theft. Most counties, Somerset County does it as well, they have shredding dates. You can bring them bags of shredding materials. They throw it into a huge truck that does nothing but shred and will destroy it. There are businesses that do shredding as well. If you just have an inordinate amount of paper that you need to get rid of. Right? Master spreadsheet. Okay? One of the things, and I don't know if you have it because I think you said in a place that there wasn't a folder, but in the folders, there are personal inventory workbooks. It can serve pretty much the same function. Have a paper master spreadsheet that lists all the online accounts, your passwords, PIN numbers, those security questions, right? I try it 3 times and it locks me out. Now I have to remember what was the name of the first pet? Well, whose first pet? Grandma's first pet, mom's first pet, my first pet, right? So just write down the answers to the security questions, and to the extent possible, use the same answers and same security questions. Household inventories, especially if you have people coming in and out of the household. And you don't have to write down everything you have in the house. You have a cell phone, you can take video. Take your cell phone, turn on the video, slowly swing it around the room, and it'll take a snapshot of what's in there. But that gives you an idea of an inventory of what should be there and what should stay there. ID cards, right? We don't want to carry around our social security cards, worried about identity theft. Well, where else do they use your social security number? Possibly on a Medicare card, possibly on a healthcare card, right? Make sure you make photocopies of all those ID cards, right? And leave the originals at home. And anytime you need to use them, you have a photocopy with you. You can also, a lot of times if it has front and back, because they'll let you fax in your insurance card, right? If you just send them the front and back. So a lot of times they will. And you can always call ahead to double check, but most doctors' offices have accepted that. What you can do also is some places like Aetna, you can sign in to their portal and you can pull up an electronic copy of your ID card. Right? So one notebook, right? We're trying to consolidate. So one email address, one bank account, one credit card. We all take notes. And I am great at grabbing whatever random scrap of paper happens to be right in front of me. Sometimes it's written in pen, pencil, crayon, highlighter, whatever I can get a hold of, right? Get yourself one notebook that you take to every doctor's visit with you. And, go out and pick, now 5 subject notebooks, 2 subject. Pick something that looks nice, that you enjoy using, that you're going to carry around with you. Right? And then if you can, get one that has one of the side pockets. So any paperwork that they give you, you can slide in there until you have a chance to either file it, scan it, or shred it. Most importantly, relax. There is very little that you can do that is absolutely irreversible. The whole point of organizing your finances and having a plan together is to free up your time to enjoy being with the person you're taking care of, to avoid conflicts with them, to preserve their pride, their dignity, your sanity, right? But to really enjoy the time that you have with them. And the last thing that you're going to worry about when they're no longer with you is whether a bill was paid 5 days late. Questions? So the question was, what happens if you find a photocopy of a will but you don't have an original and you're going to try and get that admitted to probate? One of the first things that I suggest, take a look at who witnessed the document. A lot of times firms stamp their name on the document, or the attorney might be one of the witnesses, in which case you can give them a call and they may have the original in their files. If all you have is a photocopy, you're not going to be able to go through the normal probate process. It's actually almost like a litigation. You have to file a complaint to have that will recognized under some, whether it's, there are a couple of different arguments that an attorney might use to say that this is a valid will and really represents their interest. But without an original signature and an original will, you're going to have to go through more of an extended process. So the question was, how do you get power of attorney if a person already has dementia? In order to sign legal documents, you have to have capacity. And that capacity can be very actually minimal. knowing what you're signing, knowing what you owe, and knowing who your family members are. But you're right, there is a period in dementia where you are no longer able to sign legal documents. And then the process that you're left with is becoming their guardian. And so a guardianship proceeding is a litigation filed. It takes 2 doctors willing to certify that that person is unable to make decisions for themselves. You file with the court asking to be appointed as a guardian. And it can be a painless process. It can be a pretty quick process. A guardian ad litem will be appointed to represent your loved one, go out and meet with them, talk to you, see what's in their best interest, make a recommendation to the court. Okay. However, if you have siblings that you don't see eye to eye with, and you can't agree on who should be guardian, or whether or not you should be co-guardians, you can actually have a contested guardianship, which is a full-on litigation, to determine who would be best to make those decisions. So there is an avenue if they no longer have capacity to sign a power of attorney. If the family is in agreement, it can be a painless process to be appointed a guardian. You get an order, a court order, giving you all the powers over their financial matters and over their person. So you can do both. You can manage their financials and you can manage their health care. The one thing I will say is that it requires annual reporting to the court. So you have to send them an accounting basically showing that you haven't made off with all the money. Probably what you have is a durable, it'll probably say general durable power of attorney. And the language in there would say something like, I grant this person the power to do everything I could if I was competent, including but not limited to. And then it'll go through a long litany of things. Buy and sell stock, pay my bills, sign my taxes. In New Jersey, if that power of attorney does not say that you can make gifts, you do not have that authority. Right? That's separate and apart from a healthcare directive, which might say something like, in the event that I am unable to make medical decisions for myself, I hereby appoint the following people to make such decisions for me. So one is going to cover financial and one is going to cover that healthcare decision. And usually a healthcare representative or healthcare power of attorney is accompanied with a living will that says, these are my wishes concerning whether I want pain relieving medications, whether I want artificial hydration and nutrition, do I want experimental procedures, those kinds of things. So a living will and advance directive are pretty much used interchangeably. Okay? And that usually says something like, in the event that I have an incurable illness or I'm in a persistent vegetative state, here's what I want or don't want. Okay? So that's just expressing your wishes. The power of attorney, the medical power of attorney or healthcare representative, that appoints who's going to make those decisions. So one says what I want, and the other one says who's going to make that decision for me, right? Because somebody's got to be in the position for the hospital to talk to them, for them to make a decision that this is a persistent vegetative state, and these are his wishes, and I'm going to direct you to follow them. Wills and codicils require 2 witnesses. Right? Now, if you don't want to have to find those witnesses years and years later after it's been signed, then you need what's called a self-proving affidavit. Those witnesses sign again in front of a notary. So the attorney doesn't have to be there, but they often are there because there are a couple of questions we will ask somebody during a will signing. Are you sure you're over 18? Is this really what you want to do? Did anybody force you to come here? Have you taken any recreational substances before you got here? Right? Because we always ask those questions to show that the person hasn't had a couple of afternoon drinks. Right? They are legitimately an adult because you can't make a will until you are an adult. Right? And that nobody is influencing them. When it comes to litigation over wills, that is a big concern. That there is one child halfway across the country and one child that is here every day with mom. And all of a sudden mom changes her will and it's not 50-50 anymore. This one child's getting everything. And so they're concerned, did mom do that out of appreciation for what this child was doing for them? Or did this child tell mom, if you want me to keep taking care of you, this is what you need to do? So attorneys will ask questions to see if they're there of their own free will. But you can do it without an attorney present. So the question was, if things change, if circumstances change after you've executed your will, do you go back to the same attorney? Can you use some of these services like LegalZoom or some of the forms that you find at Staples? You don't ever have to go back to the same attorney. Even if you're in the middle of the process and you decide you don't like your attorney, go to another one. Okay? You can always change attorneys. I will say this about the legal documents that you can get off of LegalZoom or at Staples. Because you can get them at any Staples, how specific are they going to be to New Jersey law? Right? They're drafted to be broadly applicable. And a lot of them might have legal language in it that you might not understand. And it's just formulaic. It's LegalZoom or all state legal forms guessing at what you probably want it to say. You're not going to have the flexibility to do the same thing if you have an attorney draft it. Mm-hmm. When we talk in terms of a will, this is something that comes into effect when you die. You can change it at any point in time you want, right up until then. Okay. When you talk in terms of a trust, you have a choice. Some trusts people create during their lifetime, and some of them can be changed. They're revocable trusts. And some of them cannot be changed, which are irrevocable trusts. When you talk about a revocable trust, think about a basket. Right? You can put all of your assets into it. You can take all of it out. It has no tax benefit whatsoever because things can go in and out and change very easily. It's easily amended. An irrevocable trust, which you might be familiar with, some people may have used them for Medicaid planning, okay? That's a lockbox. That's a set it and forget it. Okay? Separate from those trusts that you can do during your lifetime, many people might have trusts under their will. They have a grandchild who's 16, they don't want to hand them a chunk of money, they put it in a trust for them. And that's called a testamentary trust, created when you die. So a will done through LegalZoom, is that a valid will? Yes, it's going to be a valid will if it is executed properly. The witnesses can be just about anybody, right? Like I said, I will caution you, the one thing you need to be careful about with something from LegalZoom or something from an all-state legal form, the tax clause. New Jersey has an estate tax and an inheritance tax. And how those taxes get paid and from where, that's governed by the tax clause in the will. So they could say, hey, the person who I give $10,000 to somebody who pays a 15% tax on it, are they going to pay that? Is that going to come off of their top? Or I leave the rest of my property to somebody else, they're going to pay it for this person. So be very careful using those standard forms with the language that they put in there, and especially the tax language.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.